welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is 10 cards you should be putting in your Commander decks, episode 22. Let's start out this time with a real funny card here. Kjeldoran Home Guard, 3 and a white human soldier, 1/6. At the end of combat, if this creature attacked or blocked this combat, put a -0/-1 counter on this creature and create an 0/1 white deserter creature token. Very flavorful card. I will point out this card does have a pretty big butt, right? It does have a 6 toughness that might be relevant in certain decks. This card is just very, very unique. And it's unique, obviously, because of what it's doing, but there's a couple of different themes where it might fit. It is putting counters on itself, and it is also creating tokens. That, I think, is pretty significant. You don't see too many cards that are doing that. You don't have to put any mana into it. You just attack with it or you block with it. It's obviously a pretty good blocker because it's got a big butt, and it's obviously fine when it's attacking because likely your opponents aren't going to have a creature that can kill it. I used to have this card in my Benny Brax deck. When I first put my Benny Brax deck together and I was just looking for sort of generic token makers, I put this in there because, of course, this guy very easily makes a token. On my turn, I can attack with it. I'll put a -1/-0 counter on it and make a deserter token. Now on my end step, I've created a token, so I will get to draw a card. Maybe I want to leave it up as a blocker. So, of course, on my opponent's turn, I can block with this guy. Likely it will survive that interaction, and then I've created a deserter token on my opponent's turn, of course, and I will get the card draw off my Benny Brax on the end step. So I think it's a pretty good fit in any deck where you just want to be creating tokens for whatever reason. Maybe you want to be putting counters on creatures. Because it is a very unique card that's doing a couple of different things, I think there is some decks that maybe it could fit in. Kin Tree Invocation is a card that I don't think I've ever seen in a Commander game, and it could definitely fit in some decks. Black and a green sorcery. Create an XX black and green spirit warrior creature token where X is the greatest toughness among creatures you control. It is a pretty easy to slot this card into a whole lot of decks. I mean, really, you could put this in any deck, right? Because, of course, at any point in the game, you're going to have, I don't know, what, a 5/5 creature or a 6/6 creature in play, and this is 2 mana, create a 6/6 creature. That seems pretty good. I know it's just a vanilla creature, but it just seems like a really fantastic rate. Even in a Commander game, it's a pretty fantastic rate to be able to create a 6/6 token for 2 mana. In the token theme, it might fit extra good. If you're in the Toughness Matters theme, again, the big butt deck, this might seem extra good, right? Like a Doran deck, something like that, where you're playing lots of big, high toughness creatures, you might really get a fantastic rate for a card like this, right? It's pretty simple, but I think it fits in a lot of decks. Next up at number 3, we got a more unique card here, especially with regards to the color it is in. So 2 and a black instant. All damage that we've dealt this turn to target creature you control by a source of your choice is dealt to another target creature instead. That's right. I said 2 and a black for this guy. This is a black card. Of course, it is a color shifted card, originally from Planar Chaos. It is doing something that you just never see in black. If you're looking for an effect like this, sort of the redirect damage effect, and of course, there's lots of ways to use that in any given Commander game. All damage that would be dealt this turn to target creature. I mean, I can use this to save my commander from a Blasphemous Act. Instead of it getting 13 damage, I can have that 13 damage redirected to some other creature that, I mean, it's going to die anyway. Who cares, right? I can save my commander from a Blasphemous Act with this card. I can redirect damage from my blocking creature, right? I just chump with some creature because my opponent's attacking me with a big creature, and I have that damage redirected to some other creature. So I'm saving my creature and also killing another creature that I want to get off the table for 3 mana. That seems great, right? This card actually, even though it doesn't look like it's doing much, is very unique in its colors, and I think can accomplish a lot in a Commander game. Speaking of those sort of color pie breaks, a card that I have mentioned on my channel a few times before, that is certainly not something that you're normally going to see in black, and this is one of the few unique effects that is doing it. Koskun Falls, 2 black, black enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this enchantment unless you tap an untapped creature you control, which is not that difficult to do, and I will point out might even be an upside for you if you are playing a King Makar deck, because of course it is a way to tap down your commander. Absolute slam dunk in that deck, I think. But of course, you're going to be mostly playing it because creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. That's right, this is a black Propaganda or Ghostly Prison. This is actually, funny enough, the first effect that did this. Originally, it was a black card. Most people don't know that. You think of it more as a blue or white effect. If you're looking for an effect like that in your black deck, that is sort of the pillow fort strategy, or you just want to keep your opponents off of you and you do have a creature that you're able to tap down on the upkeep, this is probably the card you're looking for. Next up, this is a funny one. Krark-Clan Shaman, 1 red mana Goblin Shaman 1/1. Sacrifice an artifact. This creature deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. And a lot of people will probably point out right away that this card probably would be a lot better if this guy didn't kill himself, which of course he does. He is a creature without flying. So of course, as soon as you activate this ability for the first time, this guy's going to shoot himself, right? And that's going to be the end of it because of course he's got a 1 toughness. There are ways around that, obviously. Okay, so we can already go down the scenario of my guy's indestructible, my guy preventing damage to him, whatever the case may be. However, anyone savvy on the rules of the game will tell you, well, hold on, you can just hold priority, right? If I have a whole bunch of artifacts in play that I can sacrifice 1 activating this ability, hold priority, so it hasn't resolved yet, and then sacrifice another one and repeat this process as many times as I want. If I have 6 artifacts in play, I can very easily sacrifice all of them all at once and have this guy deal 6 damage to all creatures without flying, of course, including himself. So he is eventually going to kill himself with his ability, but you can activate this essentially as many times as you want all at once to get a whole bunch of creatures off the table before he dies. I kind of like this card in like a treasure deck. There's a lot of red decks out there, obviously, that are cranking out treasure tokens. And this guy's sort of like a dead man switch or something, just kind of keeps people off of you. Like if someone's going to attack you with their whole team and in response, you're just like, I'm going to blow up the whole board here. I'll just sacrifice a bunch of my treasures and kill everyone's creatures. Of course, because you can select the amount of damage here, that even makes this better, right? If I have a commander with a 5 or 6 toughness or something, hey, I'll just sacrifice 2 or 3 or 4 artifacts, get all those little creatures off the battlefield, and my commander or whatever other creature sticks around. So can be extra good against someone who's got a small creature theme. They're playing a goblin deck or an sapperling deck or something like that. It's very easy for me to just manipulate the number here to wipe out their board and leave all my creatures around, except of course my Krark-Clan Shaman, which is almost always going to be killing itself. Coming in number 6 is Krosan Beast, 3 and a green, Squirrel Beast, 1/1. And of course, it is a squirrel and it is a beast, so it fits in all those squirrel decks, but if you're doing those beast tribal decks, boy, you got to throw this guy in there. 1/1 doesn't seem like much, but if you have Threshold, this creature gets +7/+7. And of course, Threshold means you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. Not that difficult to do in a commander game, and in fact, by the time you can cast this guy, you might already have 7 cards in your graveyard. I mean, yeah, you can put this in a theme where maybe you're filling your graveyard extra fast, I suppose, but it's very easy to have this guy come down on turn 5 or 6 for 4 mana and already be an 8/8. It is a vanilla creature, but again, if you're in those themes like the squirrels or the beasts, you probably have some other added bonuses you can add on there. This also fits nicely into the theme where maybe I'm just giving all my creatures trample, maybe I'm just giving all my creatures whatever other kinds of abilities. If you were in a deck, like say a Voltron deck in green, and you just had lots of equipment lying around, okay, well, I mean, I'll throw a Krosan Beast in there because maybe my commander gets killed. I cast this guy on like turn 7 because my commander's died a few times. I throw Sword of Vengeance on it. Oh boy, that's looking pretty scary, right? I also like this in a theme where you're doing the greater good thing, right? And I have a couple of decks like that where I just want to be sacrificing those big creatures to be giving myself a lot of cards in hand. And of course, if you got that Kintree Invocation, this is now 2 mana create an 8/8 creature. So those scenarios as well. It is just a vanilla creature, but getting a 4 mana 8/8 even in Commander is pretty darn good. Back to another card that, again, I used to see in Commander quite a bit back in the day and I never see anymore. Kukemssa Pirates, 3 and a blue human pirate 2/2, and this is a pirate. One of the original pirates, of course. So if you are in a pirate deck in blue, you could certainly throw this guy in there, but this guy was played a lot in the Commander format back in the day because of this ability. Whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, you may gain control of target artifact defending player controls. If you do, this creature assigns no combat damage this turn, and of course, people were just using this to steal everyone else's soul rings, typically. It's just a neat creature in a Commander game. It's going to make it so that I know a lot lot of people point out, oh, your opponents just leave blockers up all the time. Okay, but now they got to leave blockers up all the time, right? I mean, if you're in a theme where you can be getting in for damage easily, maybe I'm giving my creatures flying, maybe I'm giving my creatures, certain unblockable abilities. That's the theme of the deck. Of course, a lot of blue decks are doing that. It fits in a lot of those decks as well, but just all around a pretty good card in a commander game, I think. Next up, we got Kusari-Gama, 3-mana artifact equipment. With equip 3, and equip creature has pay 2, this creature gets +1/+0 into land a turn. And that is an ability you probably won't likely use a lot, although you certainly could. You're gonna put this card in your deck for this last ability, which is really fantastic. Whenever equip creature deals damage to a blocking creature, this equipment deals that much damage to each other creature defending player controls. So this is really gonna make it so that people aren't going to want to block your commander or whatever creature you want to be attacking with, right? This is a situation where if I want to be getting in for damage with my commander, I just throw this guy on there, and if somebody chumps, like they think they can just throw a 1/1 token in the way, great. Now I'm going to do 8 damage to your whole team and basically wipe your entire board, right? It really makes it so your opponents are never going to want to block that creature. However, it gets even better because the wording on this card is just when a creature deals damage to a blocking creature, it doesn't actually have to be in combat. So if you have a creature that just throws damage around, you can throw this on there as well. There are commanders that are throwing damage around. So of course, if a creature just happens to be blocking in combat at any point, you can then hit that creature with your commander that's throwing damage around. And of course, that damage will then be transferred to all the rest of their creatures. I think this card's an absolute slam dunk in a Brigid Hero of Kinsbale deck because of course, she says tap, Brigid deals 2 damage to each attacking or blocking creature target player controls. So if your opponents at any point, whether it's your creatures they're blocking or someone else's creatures they're blocking, if they block at all with a creature and you have this equipment on your Brigid, you can then shoot that blocking creature for 2 damage, and then it will deal another 2 damage to each other creature they control, right? Things can get really out of hand with this equipment in the right situation. Coming in at number 9, a card I have on a deck of mine is Kyren Negotiations, 2 red enchantment. Tap an untapped creature you control. This enchantment deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. This is really a card you could throw in just about any deck, to be quite honest. The deck that I have it in is my Lulu deck, because of course my Lulu deck is also red, and I want to be tapping my creatures down. And here, obviously, tap down all my creatures on my turn, get that revolt trigger, and now all my creatures untap and I get the counters on them. So if I already want to be tapping my creatures down, this is just added bonus because now I get to throw some damage around to my opponents, or possibly get a planeswalker off the battlefield. But also, you could just very easily throw this in any deck where you're not attacking a lot, and I guess most red decks are, but if this is sitting in play, of course I can use it at any time. It's the end step right before my turn. I have any number of creatures untapped. I can just tap them down to throw some damage around, and then go to my turn and untap my creatures, right? So it's really just a freebie in a lot of decks. If you plan on having a lot of creatures lying around, it's just a free way to throw damage around. And we're going to end off this time with a real funny card here. Last Laugh, 2 black enchantment. Whenever a permanent other than this enchantment is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, this enchantment deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. When there are no creatures on the battlefield, you sacrifice this enchantment. So of course, whenever any permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, this deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. That's happening constantly, right? This is a really crazy card, and things can get out of hand, obviously, incredibly fast. It's sort of like Massacre Girl, where when Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, it gives all creatures -1/-1, and then, of course, if it happens to kill a creature, you sort of have this cascading effect. Last Laugh is the same way, but of course, with any permanent. And also, it's dealing damage to players, and of course, it's hitting you, so you got to be careful here. All someone has to do is crack a fetch land, right, to get the ball rolling here, or sacrifice a treasure, because that is a permanent that is going to the graveyard. Pretty much anything will trigger this and get the ball rolling, and it'll deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. And then again, just like the Mask Girl situation, if there's a 1 toughness creature, that'll die, and then this will repeat the process. And then if there's a 2 toughness creature, that'll die, and probably likely you will get that cascading effect where it'll just knock everything off the table. indestructible. So if you're just looking for kind of a weird, silly black board wipe, this certainly can fit that scenario if there's a lot of creatures on the battlefield. Of course, again, it is hitting players as well. Maybe it's extra good in that life gain situation where you're gaining a bunch of life so you don't care. Might be extra good in the situation where you want to be hitting your creatures for damage. There is a really funny combo that I came up with here with High Priest of Penance, which of course is a creature that wants to be dealt damage because whenever it's dealt damage, you may destroy target non-land permanent. And of course, when you destroy that non-land permanent, that's a permanent leaving the battlefield, which will then trigger your last laugh again. And if you have a way to give your High Priest of Penance indestructible, which of course there's lots of ways to do that, this will essentially keep triggering over and over and over again, allowing you to destroy every single non-land permanent on the battlefield, if you so choose. It's obviously a really powerful effect, right? This is a really powerful effect that can cause a whole lot of chaos in a commander game, without a doubt. But that is all. That is 10 more cards that I think you guys should give consideration for in your commander decks. Let me know if you're already playing some of these cards. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.